Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed my cover of 570 by Motionless and Wyatt. This song was an absolute blast to learn. Definitely one of the more difficult songs I've done in a while. The biggest reason why is because of how long the song is and how many tempo changes occur throughout the track. So that's where we're going to start with this lesson, is the tempo map. I'm going to post that first as an overview right now. Check it out. There on your screen is the actual tempo map for this track. I'm going to go through those tempos right now, and then I'm going to backtrack through them as we go through each section and restate what tempos are occurring at what times. So what you have on your screen, the first tempo is 195, and it's going to switch to 188, then it's going to switch to 185, and it's going to ramp down. It's a 2-bar ramp from 185 to 150, and then after 150 it's going to transition to 140, and then after 140 it's going to go back up to 185, and that's the rest of the track at 185. So that's what the tempo map looks like. Like I said, I will be going through that again. All right, let's get into the sections now. So the first section I'm going to take you through is the first fill in the song. It's just 2 bars long. It's the intro fill that kicks off the whole track. The tempo for this section is 195 beats per minute. I'm going to perform it at 195, and then I'm going to slow it down to 160 beats per minute. Here's the intro fill now. Okay, cool. So coming out of that intro fill, it starts right away with the intro of the song. The intro of the song as well transitions seamlessly into the first verse. I'm going to play the intro and verse 1.1 for you now. The tempo of this section is again 195 beats per minute, which means I'm going to play it once for you at 195, and then I'm going to slow it down to that 160 that I did for the first section. Here is the intro and verse 1.1 now. Okay, so coming out of verse 1.1, we are now going to go into verse 1.2. This is where we see our first tempo change. It's a hard tempo change, which means it's going to change on the bar line. It's going to change from 195 beats per minute, which is the tempo we were just in, down to 188 beats per minute. This means that I'm going to perform this section to you, verse 1.2, at 188 beats per minute, and then I'm going to play it again at 148 beats per minute. Here is verse 1.2, the second half of the first verse, now. Alright, so after verse 1.2, we are wrapped up on the first verse, and we're going to transition into the first pre-chorus. This pre-chorus section is on its own tempo as well, so we do have another tempo change here. At the beginning of the pre-chorus where this hits, the tempo is going to change from 188 down to 185. If you were to say this song has a tempo, the song's tempo would be 185 beats per minute because of how frequent we're going to use this tempo. I'd say at least half the track is going to be performed at 185. So now we're starting the first section that's going to be at that common tempo. I'm going to perform the first pre-chorus 1 to you now. I'm going to first play it at the tempo, which is 185, as I just said, and then I'm going to slow it down to 145 beats per minute. Here's the first pre-chorus now. Alright, so coming out of the pre-chorus 1, we're now going to go into chorus 1.1. I'm going to break the choruses in half and perform the first section and then the second section, so we're going to start with chorus 1.1. There's no tempo change here. We're going to stick with that common tempo of 185 beats per minute, which means, again, I'm going to roll through this section first at 185 and then take you back through at 145. So here's chorus 1.1 now. Okay, so coming out of chorus 1.1, we're going to move into chorus 1.2. It's just the second half of the first chorus. Again, same tempos as we just did, and here is chorus 1.2 now. So coming out of the first chorus, we're going to go into verse 2.1, the first half of the second verse. We're going to keep the tempos the same, just as before. The tempo of this part is going to be 185, and then I'm going to play it again going back through at 145. Just before the section, there's a bit of a dropout. I'm not counting for that when I play it here for you. That is there in the actual song. Then we're going to do a fill that's very similar to the intro fill. However, there's a slight change. The roll at the end, the last 4 notes, instead of placing it on your snare drum, you're going to place it on the floor tom, and then go into more of this double time punk groove. So here is verse 2.1 now. Coming out of verse 2.1, we're going to go into verse 2.2, of course, the second half of the second verse. The transition here that I just played for you coming into this section is really cool. It's definitely one of the more unique fills that I've performed just because we have those chokes lining up on the left accent crash and then the 16th on the kick. Coming into the section though, it's just a very simple common metalcore groove with a triplet fill to take us out of it into the chorus. So here is verse 2.2 now. Coming out of verse 2.2, there is no pre-chorus to transition us into chorus 2. It's just going to go straight into chorus 2. Chorus 2.1, I'm going to perform for you now. We're sticking at that tempo we've been at, which is 185, and that means that I'll be going back through at 145. Here's chorus 2.1 now. All right, so moving along after 2.1, of course, now second half of chorus 2, chorus 2.2. At the end of this chorus, we have an extension of a couple bars. Those two extra bars are going to be a tempo ramp, which means that the tempo isn't going to switch all of a sudden on a bar line like it has at every other tempo switch up until this point. This guy is going to slowly ramp down, and you're going to feel that as you listen to me play it isolated to a click here. The tempos we're transitioning from, it's going to be at 185, which is what we're playing this section at, and then it's going to ramp down over the course of 2 bars to finish at 150. Here's chorus 2.2 now. Coming out of that, now we are at a new tempo. We are at 150 beats per minute, which is what we ramped down to at the end of that last section. So the next section we're going to go into is there's a bit of a dropout. I'm not going to play that for you. In the cover video, it's just me keeping time on the hi-hat and the china. You don't really need to see me perform that here isolated. The next section where we've got some drums that I need to break down for you though is the bridge build-up. This is the first section that brings us into the bridge. This section is going to be at 150, which is the tempo that we ramped down to. Pay attention to what hand I'm leading the rolls and the fills with. There's a couple times where I'm going to be leading with my left hand just because of the way the sticking lines up for this groove. I'm going to perform this to you first at 150 and then I'm going to slow it down to 120 beats per minute. Here is the bridge build up now. Awesome. So after that build up, we're going to have another tempo change. We're going to change from 150, drop it 10 BPM to 140. This is going to happen at the very last bar line before the dropout. This means there's 2 whole bars of 140 alone where Chris says those words, if you mean it, you'll make it. Those are the first 2 bars in 140. And that's when the bridge breakdown hits right after those 2 bars. I'm going to perform the first half of the bridge breakdown to you now. This section is at 140 beats per minute. I'm going to play it first at that tempo, and then I'm going to slow it down to 115 beats per minute. Here's the first half of the bridge breakdown now. So coming out of bridge breakdown 1.1, we're going to go into 1.2 where we're going to double the amount of hits on the China, and the pattern on our feet and hands is going to change as well. This section is still in that same 140 tempo, which means I'm going to first perform it to you at 140 and then I'm going to drop it back to 115. Here's the bridge breakdown 1.2 now. After we're done the breakdowns in the bridge, there's a transition section. At the start of this transition section, we have our last tempo change. We're going to change from 140 all the way up to 185, which is that tempo that we use for most of the song. I'm going to play this just once at 185. You don't really need me to slow down this section. It's super simple. Most of it is just kick drum anyways. So here's the bridge transition now. So at the end of that bridge transition, we got that fill, and that fill is going to bring us right into chorus 3. I will be breaking chorus 3 up into 2 sections, just as I did with the other choruses. So the next section I'll be playing here is 3.1. 3.1 is the first half of the other 2 choruses, but we're going to double it. So we stay in that halftime feel a lot longer. So over the center line of this section, we've got this cool triplet fill where I'm going to do 2 16th notes on my feet, and then 4 triplets on the snare drum, and then some effect cymbals, and then we just repeat the section. So here's chorus 3.1 now. Okay, cool. So after chorus 3.1, we're going to go into chorus 3.2, the second half of the third chorus. This section is at 185 beats per minute, just like the first half of the chorus was, which means I'm going to be playing it at 185, and then I'm going to slow it down to 145. This second half, 3.2, is essentially 1.2 or 2.2, but we're going to double it, just as 3.1 doubled the first half of the first and second chorus as well. The only thing you really need to pay attention to here is at the center of this section, there's some work between my snare drum and my kick drum. It goes back and forth. The groove that I play there is not exactly the same as a similar version of it that I play in the first 2 choruses. So pay close attention to this new fill. So here's chorus 3.2 now. Okay, sweet. So we are so close to finishing the track. We have one more section to go. It is the outro. It is a breakdown, and it is at 185 beats per minute, which means, I don't need to say it again, but I'm gonna, 185, then I'm gonna slow it down, 145. This breakdown is unique onto itself, so you will need to do some learning here, and then as soon as you get this section down, you are done the song. Here is the outro breakdown performed for you now. Okay, awesome. So that wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed my lesson video and my cover of the song 570 by Motionless and Wyatt. If you found this lesson video helped you, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you are not already subscribed to this channel. If you want to connect with me further, you can find links to my other social media pages in the description below. My Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram. Feel free to hit me up with questions about this video or any of my other videos. I try and get back to you as much as possible, and oftentimes some of the requests that come along, I get to turn into a video in the future. So feel free to hit me up on those links. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys soon with something new.